All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live today. Make sure you like,
Hi.
share. And we've got a good topic today that we're going to be talking about, honey?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Sam and Kitty. We thought we'd better get on here and say hi. We had the school holidays, so it was a busy last few weeks, but we are back. Thanks for joining us and getting on here with us for your midday fortnightly check-in. But yeah, we do have a few good topics, and our topic that we've got written up there, which is
Inheritance,
legacy, and future. And
those are good words.
The little description I put underneath there was what we do today. What did I actually say? Basically, the decisions we make today will impact our future. So we're depending on what we do today. So yeah, let's get into it, honey.
That's good. Okay, so first of all, welcome, and thanks for joining us. And don't hesitate to put any comments, any questions. We'll try and keep an eye on that and answer those. But it's quite a good topic today because not everyone is thinking about the future. Not everyone is kind of concerned about what happens tomorrow. Like I said the other day, I think I said, a survival mindset is a selfish mindset. Now that kind of can sound like, oh, that's sad. People are just trying to make it by and trying to get through.
True.
But survival is not looking at the future. Survival is not concerned about tomorrow. It's just trying to live in the moment and just get by. And I think, unfortunately for a lot of cultures and different people, in our circles, you find that they've come from a background where it hasn't just been parents and families that have been trying to survive, but it's actually been coming from deficit. So if we want to pass down inheritance that allows your kids to be blessed, a lot of the time people around us, it's undoing the curse, things that have been passed down like anger and poverty and not having enough money, not even square one, but like having to pay the debts of their parents. So I think that's a good thing to talk about too, is that sometimes you have to deal with the past and break the curse so you can move forward in strength.
True. 100%. I think it's probably easy to have that sort of mindset when you're younger. And it's just you, or even if you're married or you're a young couple, like it's quite easy to sort of just be in the now, living in the now, not really looking too much into the future. But I guess that's where, like I've got in the description of this live, is that I've got a family photo of us and our kids, and it was on my computer. And I was thinking, wow, like the decisions we made yesterday, we're basically living the decisions we made yesterday. The life that we live now is because of the decisions we made yesterday. Then I think about, well, the decisions we make today is going to determine what tomorrow looks like, not just for us, but our children and then grandchildren to come. So having that mindset, like I'll be honest, it can be easy when you're younger to just be in the now, and to be honest, be quite selfish. But I think once you become a parent, and probably no doubt grandparents out there are like, wait till you're a grandparent, like you really start to understand, like, wow, this is not just about me anymore. There's so many factors involved that there's a lot depending on my children, my grandchildren, the future's depending on the decisions that we make. So
that's good. I think I'll pick up on a point you said, is like there's three phases I can think of. Like it's the teenage years. It's like me, what I need. I want this. I've grown up and now I want all these things I've, thought about and I couldn't get when I was young. And so I got my first job and, I'm a teenager. I'm not quite a parent or an adult, but I've got money kind of coming in. There's that phase. That can be a selfish phase. The next phase is, I suppose, being an adult and maybe early parenting when kids come, and it's still like just going through the phases because you're trying to keep up with the kids and, you're still quite young, so you still want a decent car and then, we want to start buying our first home. So you're in that mode. It's not really projecting bigger than just let's get this thing going. Then you get to probably the third and last stage, which is when I think of the Bible, it's like patriarchs or matriarchs.
Yes.
And a patriarch is more like a life-giving spirit. He's magnanimous. He's gone beyond what he can get or she can get, and they're focused on what the grandkids will step into. And I think Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so a good man leaves an inheritance. And I think for us, we could probably discuss what is inheritance, not just on a material level, but what is inheritance in spirit, soul, and practicality as well.
Yes. I think for me, when you think of an inheritance, it's everything that when you're gone, what's going to get left behind. And immediately you think of inheritance as finance, financial inheritance, houses, all that kind of thing. And that's the goal, is to be leaving an inheritance for your kids so that they're, like you said, they're not starting life in deficit.
Yeah.
You're not leaving them all your bills or your debt. And that's on a tangible level, but even on a spiritual and emotional level, like undealt with things. So I think actually this is a good point, is like when you think of debt, it's more than just like no one wants to leave a debt for their family, right? Well, what about on a spiritual level? What about spiritual debt? What about emotional debt? What about bloodline curses? Like, do we want to leave that and be like, oh, you know what? I just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the fight in me. I just couldn't be bothered dealing with it. So, you know what, son, daughter, here you go. I'll hand over all my troubles and you deal with it, just like debt.
Exactly.
So to me, when I think of inheritance, like we're all leaving an inheritance for our children, whether we choose it or not.
Exactly.
So it's not a matter of, well, it is a matter of what do you choose, but I think that the reality is by default, our children are going to receive an inheritance. Yep. So then the decision is, what is the inheritance that I'm leaving? Am I on a physical, tangible level leaving them debt? Am I leaving them with nothing? Are they going to have to start from scratch? And pretty much I've built nothing up, so there's nothing for them to, they can't stand on my shoulders or our shoulders and everything we've built to advance and sort of project them into the future. And then same thing on a spiritual level, like what spiritual inheritance am I leaving my children? And this is a good thing for you to think about if you're watching, is like you might be like, oh yeah, I've got 10 houses, you know, my kids have got businesses, we've got plenty of things we're leaving for our kids. What about on a spiritual level? What about that kind of inheritance?
Well, that sort of stuff is, it's amazing, eh? Like you'd rather leave homes and finance and businesses that are working and investments, whatever. Of course, because the religious man will go, oh, it's not about the money, you know, it's just going to... You know, I'm leaving them good practical steps, which is good too.
It's all good to say it's not about the money, but if you were blessed or you were left with an inheritance, you'd be grateful.
But in saying that, you'd rather teach them the ability to get money. But let's sidestep that for a minute. I think for me, personally, I'll speak on my own behalf, is that the greatest thing my parents left me was Jesus Christ and the principles of kingdom living. That for me is really, how can I put it? That trumps any other
value. That's far more valuable.
Any other inheritance. And when you think about family heirlooms or passing down inheritance, let's just picture, like in the Bible, it talks about other treasure of a man's heart, good or bad. That's what flows out. There's different scriptures that talk about that. But the key thing I want to make is that if you picture two treasure chests, right, and in it you've got good stuff going in. So you had a great marriage, cool. You've managed to get them their own home. If you've got 3 or 4 kids, cool. You've taught them key principles on how to, you know, have peace in their home and all those good things. That's cool. But in the other chest, in the other treasure chest, there's hidden secrets. So things that you couldn't deal with, you know, that nobody knows. Different problems or attitudes or evil or dark things that are behind the scenes.
Or dysfunctions. Dysfunctional behaviour. That's
and whether you like it or not,
culture.
That's in that treasure chest. And so I think that's the key thing to remember, is that, like you said, it's like some people go, oh, don't do what I'm doing, boy. You can have a better life than me. And they continue the booze away their life and,
True.
you know, have no money, be broken and down and out. They say, oh, boy, you'll do better than me. Well, we have to be bold enough to make the change first, to be the breakthrough generation. I think that's
100%.
going back to what I started with, is that you have to cut off the curse so that the perpetual blessing can flow. But if you leave gaps and you leave undealt with things, it can kind of shoot through
100%.
through the conduit there.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of boldness and courage for people. Well, courage probably is the best word to actually face those tough, difficult things that are just sitting in your life. So I think personally, like, you know, stuff that's going on in your world, you know, maybe the, you know, emotional stress or the depression that kind of creeps up, or anxiety that comes, or, you know, all those kinds of behaviors that even to a degree, some people might think it's always been a part of my life. I've always had that. You probably will be, you'll probably not, what's the word I'm trying to say here? It'll probably surprise you that your parents or your grandparents or people in your bloodline had those same struggles, whether it was depression, anxiety, whether it was anger, whether it was, you know, alcoholics, or people who can't control, you know, substance abuse, whatever it is. Like, it's not actually uncommon that those things are passed down. And like you said, is, oh, you're just like your father, or you're just like your mother. Like, sometimes those characteristics are actually passed down through the bloodlines, which is what we talk about, breaking bloodline curses. Because the reality is if you think about it, like, going to get a little bit spiritual on you, but if you think about it, if you've had generations above you who have had spirits or influences of spirits, and so let's say it was a spirit of heaviness, and so depression and anxiety, and I just feel low and I just don't know why, but I just get this feeling all the time and I just can't move, I just feel like I can't get out of bed, I just want to hide away in the dark. That's an influence of a spirit of heaviness. So if that's been in generations above you, it understands and knows, you know, it's got characteristics. And then unfortunately, if we're in homes with our parents or our grandparents, that spirit's got influence in us to a degree, because it's manifesting those behaviors through, you know, the person. It understands and knows. It's clever. Spirits are clever. They're smart. They're ancient. They know the traits, and they will continue to impact and affect generation after generation after generation. So it has to be broken. It's not something you can just, I'm just going to be positive and, you know, I'm just going to, it actually is a spirit and it has a spiritual influence. So you do have to break those things.
Oh yeah, you're right. Like some people think, and you can even like put on a solid happy face and go be depressed for years, but your family would never know because you're all happy. And you think, oh, when I die, cool, that thing goes with me. But unfortunately, spiritual things are eternal. They don't, how can I put it? They don't end with one generation. They continue on. It's the same with the blessing, If you break the curse of, you know, just living in relationships without the covenant of marriage, and you get married, then now you're teaching your kids the covenant of marriage. That's something that can be passed down. So I think when you look at society now and you look at how much stuff's going on, you realize that this is powerful and so important because it can actually change the climate, because it only takes 2 or 3 solid generations of multiple families to change a suburb. And so, you know, you think about how can you change the world, and you think of the promise that God gave to Abraham is that through you the nations of the earth will be blessed. And I think the decisions we make is that many families, so we've got 4 kids, they have kids, you know, and their partners come in, they get married, they have kids. Like, it's going to become this just a massive family tree of blessing. The curse has been broken, dealt with the hidden secrets and the things of shame deep down that, you know, can still affect our lives. And I think even Christians and people who believe in God, who talk about breaking the curse, can still carry these hidden things. And it's 100%. Not until you press the issue that it comes out.
I think too, like if you think of a father or even a mother in a home, like, you know, think of our home, our children are here. Let's say our kids are in their room at night and someone comes knocking at our door and it's someone dangerous and they're like, I'm going to come in here. And you'd be like, hell no, like get out. You know, you'd want to fight that person off. You would literally fight that person off physically if they were trying to get into your home. If you can't imagine someone knocking at your door and being like, I'm going to go in and I might just go into your kid's room and being like, oh, okay. Yeah. You know, like you just literally wouldn't do that. Yeah. So on a spiritual level, and when it comes to that, is you have to have that same fight in you to be like, I'm the gatekeeper here. Like you're not coming in any further. So that's the mindset to have when it comes to our children, our future, that inheritance and legacy that we're leaving is we have to literally fight. And you know what? We're blessed because we've had parents who have fought for us. We've had our parents who have fought things that we've never had to deal with. So, for example, my dad was, I don't know, maybe an alcoholic. I think
he was.
I think it was probably. Well, what I mean is that he wasn't constantly drinking as an alcoholic. Like he had a normal job, but he would drink. Yeah. But what he would do is when he would drink, it would be out of control and it would infect him to the point where he'd just get, lose himself and get angry. So he cut that off in his life. He actually was like, no more. He realized, it's not okay to wake up in the morning and realize, shucks, I smashed my wife around and her face is all black and blue and I'm fixing the door and the walls that are broken and sorry, I won't do it again. Next party, big smash up again. So he cut that off. So in my life, I have never experienced alcohol in my home. Have I experienced alcohol? Yes, I have, but never in my home. So my siblings, no matter how old they got, I giggle because, they'd be like in their 20s, they'd be married, living in the home, but alcohol was like an absolute no. Like you do not bring that in our home. Yeah. So for my children, like it would literally, they would be so confused if mum and dad all of a sudden were like, you know what? Bring some beers over and, come over and have a drink. They'd be like, what are you up to? So that's
putting the stake in the ground too,
so, but that's a excellent example in so many other things.
One generation up,
it's like 2 generations down to my kids that is so foreign. Alcohol is so foreign in their lives and in our home. So that's what that perpetual blessing and cutting off that curse looks like. It doesn't take
much, Like my father's the same and my mum, like, he got saved at 21, but he'd already been through quite a tough gig with domestic violence, more so on the kids. And same with my granddad, alcohol, and then my father the same. Yeah. So he cut off a curse that was a massive backlog, and it was proven. Exactly. And, the brothers and all the uncles would sit around and just drink, and the bottle became their god, to be honest. Yeah. And I think probably a lot of people they underplay the fact that they are alcoholics. Like I like to drink. But if you add up how much beers you're actually having, like you're an alcoholic. But anyway, you're right. It's like it doesn't take much for the fruit to show, from one decision of cutting it off. And it's not a perfect cutting sometimes, It's like still overcoming things. But I think the curse weakens. Yeah. As long as the kids choose the God of their fathers, the curse weakens over the generations.
It does.
And then it almost becomes like if our kids, for instance, were dropped into their grandparents' world of how they were raised, because we kind of have a view of it, we don't have as much.
Gee, I think even if I was dropped into my parents' world before that,
if you were dropped into like Kui at 12 and you were dropped there, it'd be like a nightmare. And same with me, with my parents, like it'd be a nightmare of a life to comprehend. And we can get familiar with the foundations of blessings that's been laid.
But that's the whole point of us fighting for the future, is that our children never have to experience that or never have to, see that. And so, we're talking obviously.
Don't take it for granted, though.
Oh, 100%. Don't take it for granted. But that's where we actually fight for it. Yeah. And that's what we desire, is that our kids, that would be so foreign to them.
Like, how much did you have Maccas when you were young? This is a little bit off.
Yeah. I could probably remember when I went to Macca's.
Was it a big deal?
Was it a big ass deal.
It wasn't
I think because where I lived was like, we didn't have a McDonald's in our little town. So it would always be when we went to the city or we travelled somewhere far.
Where did you live? Newcastle.
No, I was actually raised in Nelson Bay.
Oh, okay.
So that was like a little beach town outside.
Kind of like home and away.
Maybe about about an hour from Newcastle. So it was very...
Newcastle where the Macca's was.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking it was only when I travelled.
It was like us. So I lived in Te Awamutu and then Hamilton.
Yeah.
So I remember getting picked up. Like I must have been 5 or 6 getting picked up and like early from school. We're going up to Hamilton and we're going to have Macca's. Like, yay, like.
Big deal. I guess maybe for people who are like, I was always in the city, so that wasn't as rare. But but I think things were so different back then. But you're right. Like what was... Anyway.
No, it's good though because our kids, like, they're going to have Macca's, like, whenever they damn kind of want. Not really, but just to say on a very practical level, the same with house, family, clothes, finance.
Yeah, like even poverty, breaking poverty. Like I grew up and I would say, like, I think one time I did an exercise on my money mindset and sort of where I sit with it. And I thought about like, my family was actually poor. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I didn't know I was poor. Like, not until I look back. No, well, I look back and we lived in like this tiny little house growing up.
Oh, yeah.
We lived I was like 5, 6, maybe going on, maybe 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
No, actually, maybe 4, 5, I can remember. We lived in this little, like, I literally was a 2-bedroom house and it was literally like a little shack.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying though is it wasn't until I actually looked back I was like, oh, I think we were poor. Oh, you know what I mean? Like my dad worked hard
financially,
but
you were rich.
Oh, we never lacked anything, and that's the thing is, I don't know about poor, but we didn't have much. I didn't come from much. So my dad worked hard. My mum was always a full-time mum. Yeah. So we always had food on the table. I was okay. Like I was happy, I never felt like I lacked. But when I look back, I'm like, wow, I actually didn't come from much. So it's interesting. But see now, as life moves on, like my children will never have to experience that or never have had to experience that.
Like some things we say, like they're like, oh, that's paru. We're like, bro, that's not paru. That's quite good.
They think like Sylvia Parks. Hori and paru. Nah, I'm like, hey, that's Flash.
Bro, they have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
I think I was raised and quite blessed, but I can remember the simpler times, where, it's like you didn't just get what you asked for, like a toy or this or that. It was like, well, you're going to have to wait.
I think though, sometimes you do worry as a parent, like, are we making our kids too entitled? Are we spoiling them too much? But, I think when you can always remind them that the reason we live like this, the reason we are blessed, the reason is because of God. It's because of it's because of the life that we've chosen. It's because of the decisions we made 10, 20, 30 years ago, so and your grandparents made. So that's the thing is, like I said, is when I looked at that photo of our family, I was like, wow, where we are today is because of the decisions you and I made as a young Sam and Kitty when we were, to be honest, even before we were married, we chose to walk the life with God's life. We chose that life. Then we got married and we chose to continue in that life. Like,
it's one thing to have the keys and the tools and the personnel around you to guide you in the blessing, but it's another thing to choose to walk that life. And I think for you and I, like I said, no walk is perfect, but I think we've decided the path we wanted to walk on and we haven't deviated hard out from that path. And I think the last part we'll talk about is 3, 5 and 10 years. Like obviously you and I, we're up there, our kids are
we're up there
at an age where they're going to be in the next few years getting married, 2 to 5 years getting married, and then that changes the whole.
Then having grandbabies.
Keen as changes the whole format of things. So the next 3, 5 and 10 years, honey, what does that look like for you?
Oh, I just constantly seeing perpetual blessing and in our lives with God. Like what specifically in general? I was like, that's a very
So obviously there's 2 things going on here. You got the practical inheritance, and then the spiritual inheritance. But I think
on a practical level, like we're always looking into
the last week or so for us.
Yeah, we've always looking into the future, and I think right now we're blessed. We've built a beautiful home. It's big enough for our whole family, and koro and kui, my parents. But we look into the future and we say, okay, over the next, say, 3 years, I'm like, our children are getting to an age where, they're going to start building relationships, moving towards marriage. So then we're like, we already think about, okay, what will that look like? So in the next 3 years, I think we'll start to look at bigger property. Yeah. Bigger, being able to house our families, our families within our family.
It's kind of like forcing the issue, like, oh, heck, it's just too attractive and nice that
you want to live with us.
I think for us, it's about trapping the grandkids somehow, let's be honest.
We've got to have them close. They've got to be close.
Because I believe I can raise them better than my kids and definitely better than their partners. That's facts, man.
Oh, come on.
Pause, I think you're right. And
they're going to marry great godly men and
but they
women.
Still would just not quite be
Get out of here. Stop it. No, so that's a little bit on a practical over the next 3-5 years. Similar, I think, growing that, and then
them engaged in, like, for us, it's building the church. But what is the church? It's God's concept of the family. Yes. I believe that any person that comes into our sphere or our family, which we call our church, Destiny Church, contrary to what mainstream belief in media is, like, your family, you engage in the elements of it. Yes. Your family is going to be more blessed. Your marriage is going to get better. Yeah. Your kids are going to fall in love with God.
Yes.
Financially, things are going to start to stack up a bit better. Your mental health, your peace, the joy, the power to overcome evil in your life is going to just flip and rise up. Yeah. That's the conviction I have. Yeah. So I want my kids to carry on that great work. It's not to do with brick and mortar and the church building and places. It's to do with the undertone of God's blessing that can change society as we know it. As the enemy's trying to raise up a dark standard within society, we have the tools and the keys to bring faith, hope and love and peace to society. So I want my kids to build that.
Yeah, our passion and desire always, and as our kids get older, like our son and our daughters, as we always share with them and talk with them and love already that they're involved in the church, that they're finding where they can serve, where they finding their, getting to nurture their own gifts. And that's what we encourage them is in these seasons, like new seasons, take the opportunity, get uncomfortable, because we just want to see them walk in how we walked and growing in the church, growing in our kingdom purpose, developing their own unique gifts and talents and seeing it expressed. But I think too also on another practical sense is, we look at businesses and we want to be able, our children to be able to be building their own inheritance as well, like being a part of our own ecosystem where we've got multiple things happening and the church is always going to be our biggest, drive in terms of building. Yeah. And our kids already are on that path with us. They've been the whole journey. But so
it's been our life. Yeah.
That's pretty much what I see in the future.
Well, that's definitely a 3 to 5, 10 and beyond. Yeah. And then our grandkids doing the same. And then obviously my parents have been a big example to us, because they're raising like my mum and dad are running around with their great grandkids, which is unbelievable. Yeah. And if that's not evidence and fruit of the blessing of God, and choosing him and his ways, then I don't know what is.
I think a huge, just want to acknowledge that our children we followed our parents because of the integrity and how steadfast and true they were to God. So they didn't just speak God, they didn't just show up to church and do the church thing. They actually lived it. Like my parents, that was them, your parents, it's the same thing. Yeah. So for us, it was, like a no-brainer to obviously follow in those footsteps for our children. Same thing, like they truly desire the heart for it, and our grandchildren will be the same. But so I think it's one thing to desire that. It's one thing to have a desire as a parent and say, oh, I want my kids to be in the church and like loving God and having this beautiful relationship with God. But you have to stop and say, are there some battles that I need to fight? Are there some battles that I need to face? Because I'm not going to play pretend, because the reality is spirits and, past things they don't care about how fake you are or how many times you turn up to church or all the awesome words that you speak out of your mouth. It's just going to come through. So that's the thing, is we have to be willing, if we want that for our future, we actually have to be willing to fight for today.
That's a good concept though. It's the want and the willingness. So I want that Lamborghini. Are you willing to go through the steps that bro did to get it?
Yeah.
I want a blessed marriage. I admire your marriage. Cool. Are you willing to let go of, deal with, clean up the stuff to have that? I want a blessed family, 100%. And it's the same thing. It's the want. That's cool. But it's the willingness to take the steps to change your life, but then change the generations to come.
There's a book that I read called Miracle Equation, and I love the concept of it, because it talks about having unwavering faith, but attached to that is extraordinary effort. So it's like unwavering faith with extraordinary effort equals miracles. And so that's the same thing, as our faith and our belief is one thing, but actually putting the hard mahi, the work, the effort behind it is what's actually going to create that miracle of a life. And
I will actually add some encouragement here, is that it doesn't take long to change things around. Someone might be watching 100%. Here today and going, cool, you're out there, barking off about blessing. I'm here and I'm in debt. I'm mentally unstable. I'm challenged in my my identity and who I am. To be honest, you can actually let stuff in your heart go. Firstly, allow Christ to come in.
Yes. And
Christ actually brings blessing and health and all sorts of things. Like, that's a whole other thing to talk about. But it doesn't have to drag on. Like, you can actually make a decision.
Yes.
In the 3, 5 to 10 year, within even 3 months, you can clean and change a lot in your family. We've seen people go from not having their kids, hooked on pee, suicidal,
come on,
to now having their family together, helping others, blessed, countenance clean, kids that look at them like, fool, they're the example.
Yeah.
And this, I'm talking about multiple people who have done this and now are living in the blessing.
Yes,
and so
good.
It doesn't fly for me, the people that want to live as a victim, make up excuses, have self-pity. You have to choose that, I'm going to put the stake in the ground to change the future.
Love it. Yeah, and just coming off the back of that, is it all right?
No, what's going on? Look over there. Let's wrap it up.
We're still live.
Are we?
Yeah, because I can see us.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, something popped up on the screen.
We ran out of battery last time. That's why.
Let's try and wrap it up soon. Though.
I know he's getting worried. I can see you looking at that computer. Okay, sorry. What I was going to say too is, like, you know what? The breakthrough of the fight too, like you said, that we've seen people come off pee, get their children returned back to them. Start, they're walking in the blessing now, but it's still a fight. It can happen and start to change in an instant, but you have to be willing to fight. Keep fighting for that next generation. Yeah. For your grandchildren, your unborn generations to come.
But you fall in love with the fight, eh? Like, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing.
It is worth it, eh? It's worth that battle and it's worth that fight. But, I just want to say too, off the back of Sam, is like, it doesn't matter what situation you were in, how dark or deep or like treacherous it may seem, like, God can turn it around. Like, if you 100%. Get Christ into your life, he will turn it around. Like, my parents, just one generation below them, and I walk in this beautiful blessing, and then our children, it's just a decision to actually say, I've had enough of this. I don't want to continue the generations before me and just carry that on through my bloodline, my children, my grandchildren. Just wrapping it up, the inheritance, the legacy, the future that we leave, all depends, or what we're going to walk into depends on the decisions we make today. So
cool.
Choose Christ is what I would say.
Yeah. I will close in prayer, eh?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Lord, for this time where we've talked about inheritance, legacy, and future. I thank you, Lord, that if there's any person or persons who are watching this who feel like they're stuck and they feel like, I don't know where to go from here. The answer is the Lord Jesus Christ. And the word says, if you accept him into your heart, confess it out of your mouth, that you will be saved. And so, Lord, if anyone who is online now, who is watching, if they confess out of their mouth Jesus Christ is Lord and they believe it in their heart, they have started their journey. So I pray that can happen, Lord. And I pray that any person who watches this, the fire and the spark would come into them, that, they can be the spark, the breakthrough, and the change for their family. Let it be in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
It's us.
Amen. Look, if you've done that, please reach out to us, because you might be like, okay, what's the next step? And we will help you with that journey. But yeah, cool. Amazing. Awesome, guys. Bless you. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for tuning in to Sam and Kitty.
That's us.